Good morning, guys, or good afternoon, whether you're joining me from the present or the future. Welcome back to another one of my FutureFight Vanguard series. So it took me I guess a couple days, like maybe 1 or 2 days, but I did record all of the GBT12 stuff, so you guys can look forward to a slew of videos from right now. As we're still playing catch-up mode, we're almost there though. It's GBT12, and then the Link Joker set, and then we'll be caught up. Technically, I'll be caught up personally if I finish out this GBT12 thing, because in English format we're on GBT12, but for those of you that are like my Malaysian fans or like Singaporean, is that what you say, Singaporean? I'm not sure, or Japanese fans, if you do know, like, I guess what you would call people from Singapore, put it in the comments below, let me know. But yeah, this is our GBT12, our first video. Today we're going to be talking about Luard, the updated Luard, the deck that I guess I'm known for ever since Jacksonville. So I decided to build like a different version of it than like the popular version that we all know of already. So yeah, let's get right into that. So we're going to be flipping over our strides as usual. And honestly, the thing that I like about Shadows is you can change out the cards in like an infinite slew of ways to kind of make them work out. And it still works out very well. And you can basically put in any cards as text, especially in the Luard deck. So I really like it that way. So beginning off, we have our boy, Dragheart Luard. He is the bread, butter, and the consistency of our deck. If something happens to him, you are a sad boy or girl. Sad girl or a sad boy. But he has two abilities. He is basically he allows us to stride for free in this deck, and then he's also our search engine in this deck. So that's what I mean by if something happens to him, you'll be sad, because it's kind of like if he gets deleted by like deleters, or like if you don't ride him, like things can get really rough because he's the whole like engine of your deck by himself. So first we have the Ritual 3 skill. So what Ritual is it is a Shadow Paladin mechanic. That Ritual is the number of grade 1s that you have in your drop zone. So if you're Ritual 3, which means if you have 3 or more cards in your drop zone, you are Ritual 3. Vanguard skill only. At the beginning of your ride phase, choose 2 normal units from your drop zone, put them on the bottom, and then you can stride for free that turn. So very, very good. Obviously allows you to stride for free, put back some more cards to call out of the deck with more consistency, and stuff like that. The second ability is Counterblast 1, choose one of your rear guards and retire it. When your G unit strides, that's when you do this, and then you search your deck for up to 2 grade 1 or less cards. So this allows you to get access to any of your grade 1s, like literally anything from this point of my mouse all the way down. You have access to calling from Luard skill. That is like absolutely ridiculous in my opinion. It's one of the best skills like in Shadow Paladin, if not the best skill in Shadow Paladin, outside of the stride units. So it's just very, very good in my opinion. Like, allows you to just do so much toolboxing and get cards out of your deck that you would want to use for your sacrifice skills, like Belial Owls or stuff like that. So moving on to our second grade 3. This is one of the new grade 3s from GBT12 that I really like. It's called Gigantech Shudder. So what Shudder does is when it attacks a Vanguard or Rearguard's full. So you can actually do this, like if you go first and you're going to be the one to ride to grade 3 first, you can choose to ride this card if you don't have Luard, and then try to use the ability to draw an extra card and hopefully get you into that Luard. So that's what I like to do when I don't get Luard in this specific build. So when your unit attacks a Vanguard, you can choose 2 of your rear guards and retire them. If you do, you draw a card, you countercharge 1, and then this unit gets plus 3,000 power. So it becomes another countercharge option, so that we don't have to only countercharge from just Abyssal Owl all the time. It also can retire like 2 owls, draw 3 cards, and then you countercharge 1 and it gets 3,000 power. So boosted by 7k, that's 21k, and it's just a very, very good rear guard. Like, it almost never has let me down in this build. So yeah, very good card. Then we have 4 Drag Wizard Morfessa. Drag Wizard Morfessa is one of our older cards from GBT6, I believe. Morfessa is a really good card. Counts towards your grade 1 count in the drop zone. So it has two abilities. First one is Generation Break 1, Ritual 3. So again, if you have 3 grade 1s or less, or sorry, 3 grade 1s or more in your drop zone, then when this unit attacks a Vanguard, it gets plus 5,000 power, and it gains an on-hit ability that says when this unit attack hits, then you can counterblast 1 and search your deck for up to 1 grade 1 card and call it to rearguard circle. So allows you to get more grade 1s out of your deck. It's like a search engine. Usually I end up searching Abyssal Owl off of this because this costs counterblast 1, so you want to refund that counterblast later somehow, because the counterblast usage in this deck can stack up pretty heavy if you're not paying attention to what you're doing. So then its second ability is in the drop zone. It counts as a grade 1. It gets -1 grade. So in the drop zone, it counts as the grade 1, so it counts towards your ritual stack. So if you have all the grade 1s in your deck in the drop zone, then you have like 4 here, and then you have 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. So you'll have 16 grade 1s in the drop zone. So basically one of our newer cards for the set, Drag Strider Luard, requires Ritual 7. So this helps getting Ritual 7, makes it a lot easier, and makes it a lot more doable for you. Then we have 3 Drag Wizard Noish. So what Noish does is it is one of our new cards from G-BT12. It is really good. I would run 4 of them if I didn't want my grade 2s to be at 10 in this deck. So I actually only run 10 grade 2s in this deck. So what this card does is, as a Generation Break 1 ability that says Generation Break 1, Ritual 3, when this card is placed on the rearguard circle, look at the top 5 cards of your deck, call 1 grade 1 or less card, and then shuffle your deck, and put, at the end of the turn, you put the unit that you called on the bottom of the deck. So that usually never applies, because whatever you're calling out, you usually just sacrifice it for one of the skills. And then if you called a unit with the Ritual ability, then this unit gets 2,000 power, and then if the card that you also called is a grade 1, then it gets plus 3,000 power. So overall, it can gain a max of 5,000 power. So it can become a really good card to like boost with the 7k. So usually you're boosting with like Abyssal Owl, Simius, or Nid, and they're all 7ks. So you can end up making your Noish 21k column easily. So very good. And then we have 3 Sweep Owl Owlner Kethlin. So what Kethlin does is it is another one of our new G-BT12 cards. It actually doesn't have its ability is not that bad. So at the end of the turn, if you're Ritual 3, you can counterblast 1, choose one of your rearguards and retire it, and then retire all of your opponent's rearguards in the same column as this unit. So what this does is, like, let's say that you play a Noish and a Kethlin on the same turn. Whatever you call off of Noish, instead of sending it back to the bottom of the deck, you can choose to just retire it with Kethlin before it would go back to the bottom of the deck, because during the end phase, you would get to choose the order for your skills, including the order for whether this card goes back first or whether this card activates first. So if you end up like doing Noish to call Belial Owl, which by the way, since Belial Owl has Ritual, this card would get plus 2,000, so it would be 11k attacker by itself. And then you can, at the end of the turn, use Counterboss 1 and retire it with Kethlin and then draw a card because of Belial Owl. So, and also retire your opponents like across the street, so one of my friends says. So you would retire like the column that's across the board from you on your opponent's field. Then we have 4 grade 1 Abyssal Owls. So basically, Abyssal Owl is a very important card in this deck for 2 reasons. Both of its abilities are those 2 reasons. So its first ability is when it's placed on the rearguard from your hand, then you can look at the top 7 cards of your deck, reveal 1 with Luard, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then if you put a card into your hand, choose 1 or more cards with the sum of their grades being grade 3 or greater, and discard them. So this is kind of like our Stride Fodder skill, our regular Stride Fodder skill, but not quite, because the regular Stride Fodder allows you to reveal a grade 3 and then get the grade 3 that you want and discard 1, meaning that you only have to have a grade 3 in your hand already. But if we don't have a grade 3 in our hand already, we can still use Abyssal Owl. We'll just have to discard more cards. So you can have like a 2 and a 1 in your hand, play Abyssal Owl, look at top 7, get a Luard, and then drop the 2 and the 1 to the drop zone. So it can kind of help with Ritual sometimes, but it can also get us into that Luard that we desperately need to ride, as I went over earlier. Then its other ability is Ritual 3 when this card is retired for the cost of effect of one of our Luard cards. Basically, if you're on Luard, then basically whenever your Vanguard uses a skill to retire cards, you want to retire this, because the other cards that have retire bonuses don't say that, like Belial Owl. So anything else that you're retiring for, the PG or Gigantic Shutter, you want to use Belial Owl with, and then like Vanguard, you want to use Abyssal Owls with if they are on the board. So you can countercharge one basically whenever you retire it. So it's very good. Keeps your counter boss open, and then it also allows you to help find Luard very quickly. Then we have 4 Drag Saver Ezra's. This is pretty much the best PG in the game, in my opinion. It has 3 abilities. First one is Sentinel, so you cannot run more than 4 Sentinels in your deck, whether that be PGs or Quintet Walls. So then the second ability is the regular PG skill. It says when this card is placed on the guard circle, you can discard a card from your hand, choose one of your Vanguards, and PG it. So this can only PG your Vanguard, so that is important to keep in mind. And then the drop zone skill is Generation Break 1, Ritual 3. You can choose, during the main phase, you can choose one of your rear guards, retire it, and then choose another card named Drag Saver Ezra's in your drop zone and put it on the bottom, and then return this card to your hand. So if you have 2 PGs in your drop zone, you can retire a card on the board to put 1 PG to your hand and 1 to the deck. So this keeps your deck at an amount where you'll never deck out between this and Belial Owl. Like, returning cards to your deck and also getting PGs back to your hand is obviously wonderful, and it also keeps your deck count up on times where you're low in deck or something like that, so it's very good. Then we have 2 Knight of Yearning Brandwyn. We don't use Brandwyn for the first skill because that has to do with Claret Sword, which we'll go over another time, because that is my next video after this one, I believe. And then the other ability is just that it's a stride fodder, so we just use it as extra stride fodder so that we don't have to not ever stride should we be up against the leaders or something that does something to Luard, or if we don't ride Luard, or infinite amount of situations where we would need to stride fodder still. Moving on to Drag Wizard Simius. So Simius is another one of our new G-BT12 cards, and this is the reason that we don't run Fodla in this specific build, because we run Simius, and Simius is basically Fodla in a grade 1 form, which makes it kind of better in a way. So Generation Break 1, Ritual 3, when this card is placed on the rearguard circle, if you have a Vanguard with Luard in its name, you can counter boss 1, then choose 2 cards from the top of your deck, call them to rearguard circle, and at the end of the turn, you retire this unit and the units called with this effect. So basically the turns that you use this, you want to use like retire 3 rearguard effects, like, I don't know, like Phantom Blaster, Diablo, or Ogma, or something like that. Because at the end turn, like, the cards called with it will retire themselves, or you can just get rid of them using like Ezra's, etc., or Gigantic Shutter. So the main difference between Fodla and this card is, number 1, Fodla lets you counterboss 1 to search grade 0s. You can only get grade 0s off of it. As well, you can choose up to an amount that you want to bring out. So if you just want to bring out 1, you can bring out 1. If you want to bring out 2, you can bring out 2. If you want to bring out 0 for whatever reason, you can bring out 0. Simius says look at the top 2, and then you have to call them. So like the unfortunate situation with it is that if you check the top 2 and there's like a heal in there, or like a draw trigger or some crit trigger or something that you don't want to call to the field, you have to call it anyways, and that's the only unfortunate part about this card. I feel like they had to make it that way, or it would be like too OP if it directly searched or allowed you to filter search, which would be checking the top 2 and calling something that you want and putting the other card back to the deck. Yeah, it would be way too good. So moving on, we have Drag Wizard Enid. Enid is another one of our new G-BT12 cards. Whenever this unit is retired from rearguard for the effect or cost of our card, then we can choose up to 2 units and they get 3,000 power. So this is really good for pumping up Gigantic Shutter, so that when it uses its skill, it's going to be overboard or over a number. Morfessa, it's good for pumping Morfessa, making Morfessa 17. If you use Noish and have used its full, like, if you got the full benefit off of it and it's 14, makes it 17, makes Keflin 9 or 12 by itself. There's a lot of options that you can use it for, but basically when you're retiring during the battle phase, you can retire for Drag Strider. This can be one of the cards that you retire for Drag Strider and give 2 units 3k. If you retire 2 of these by Drag Strider, you could just give Drag Strider like straight up 6k, which would add on to it getting 6k already, and it would be 38. With your opponent unable to guard with the grade 1, that's a pretty high number. Only a few G guards can block that in the game for 41, and then even then it would be a 1 to pass, which your opponent is not going to do. They're going to have to give you more cards if they want to be safe. Then we run 2 Blackwing Swordbreaker as usual. It's basically when you place on the rear guard circle from the deck. If you have a Shadow Paladin and Vanguard, you can Soul Blast 1, draw a card. So usually our opening play with Luard skill is to call 2 of these and empty our soul out to draw 2 cards. It's a pot of greed them, shall we say. And yeah, it's just a very good card because of that. Then we have Differabao as our starter. It has a Ritual 3 ability that says put this unit into the soul when it's retired for the effect or cost of your card with the Ritual ability. So you can get it off with Luard, you can get it off with Kethlin, you can get it off with Ezra's, and you can get it off with Luard, and I believe that's it. Luard and Ogma. Actually, no, Ogma is just grade 1. So yeah, just those cards that I mentioned, minus Ogma that I said, yeah. So what it does is you basically put it into your soul, you look at the top card of your deck, and then you can either call it to the rear guard or put it into your drop zone. So again, this is another one of those situations where it sucks if it's like a heal, but it's really good otherwise if it's something that you can just randomly call out into the field and be okay for it, or put into the drop zone if you need like a higher ritual count. Then we have 4 Belial Owl. This is one of the really good cards that Luard got in G-BT10. You guys have probably heard a lot about it if you guys play this game at all and you have like a meta around you, or if you watched my other video, my Shadow Paladin top video, you would know about this card and what it can do with the combos of the deck. So its 2 skills is number 1 in the drop zone when you're Generation Break 1 and Ritual 3. At the end of the turn, if you have a Vanguard with Luard in its name, you can put this card on the bottom of your deck. So it's a crit trigger that continuously returns itself to the bottom of your deck every turn. So they are either always in your deck or drop zone, depending on like during your opponent's turn. During your opponent's turn, they're most likely always in the deck or in the damage zone or in your hand. So they're like mostly never on the field because you retire them to draw cards. And then they're not going to be in the drop zone ever because you're going to get rid of them back to the deck as long as you're Ritual 3, which you pretty much should be all the time after first stride. Then second ability is when this card is retired from rear guard for the cost or effective card. If we have Luard in the Vanguard name, draw a card. So we do have to have Luard as our Vanguard name, which means that Luard has to be on our VG circle during stride or whatever as well. Like all the strides gain the name of Luard, so all you need is to have a Luard heart card under it, and you can draw a card off of Belial Owl. But it's very important to keep that in mind because sometimes people try to ride like a grade 3 that isn't Luard, and then they try to Belial Owl, and that doesn't work because you don't have a Luard Vanguard. So yeah, keep that in mind. We do run 4 more vanilla crit triggers, not much to say about that. Then we run 4 draw triggers. This is basically a Howl Owl clone that came out in G-BT12, but it's a drag wizard and looks cooler, so that's why we're running it. I believe they like printed another version of this card, or another version of Howl Owl's effect card, just to give Shadow Paladin more options to run more than 4 draws, and have the skill where they shove it into soul and give something 3k. So I think it's a very good card. Like, it can help you in some situations you wouldn't really expect, like if you need soul or whatever it may be. You can search this off of Luard skill as well to give yourself soul if you need it that bad. Then for our heal, we run 4 Witch of Heresy Irald. Forget it. We run 4 heals from the Fighters Collection. So what the Fighters Collection heal does is when it's discarded from our hand to call the higher fill-in-the-blank name, G-Guard, Irald, I guess, if that's the way you say it. I'm just going to say it like that. So when you discard it from your hand to call a Irald from your G-Zone, you can choose a grade 1 or less from your hand, discard it, and then draw a card. So helps filter out your hand a little more whenever you decide to G-Guard into the Witch Queen of Iniquity, Irald. So yeah, it's not bad, but it's not the best, but it's not bad either. Like, it's only okay. Then we have 2 of the new cards, the cover card of the set, Drag Strider Luard. This card is very, very powerful, but I am still finding myself, like, as a Luard player, like, wishing that it was a restander. Like, a lot of people think that that's ridiculous, that this card's so ridiculous and stuff like that, but I think it's, like, only okay, because there's a lot of ways that your opponent can get around it, and it's really annoying at times. But when this unit attacks, if you are Ritual 7 and Generation Break 2, you can retire 2 of your rear guards. Then if you do, you discard any number of cards from your hand, and this unit gets plus 3,000 power for each card discarded. And then if you discarded 2 or more, until the end of the battle, it gets plus 1 critical, plus 1 drive, and your opponent cannot guard with greater 1s or greater from their hand. So what this card does is, it's basically one of our finishers in the deck, or if you just want to put extreme pressure on your opponent, and you happen to be Ritual 7 in kind of the earliest stride zone, or the earlier stride phase of the game, where you or your opponent are both like GB2. If you happen to be Ritual 7 at that time, you can put some pressure on them by by going into Drag Strider Luard. You can put a lot of pressure on your opponent, especially in this deck since we run 8 criticals. You can make your opponent fear that the game will end, like, especially because now the most popular build of Luard pretty much runs like rainbow triggers, like 4 crit, 4 heal, 4 draw, 4 stand. And then, like, since you're running 8 crit, a lot of people won't be expecting that per se, so they'll no guard Drag Strider, like thinking that you won't crit them or something, like that you won't crit them twice. But in reality, when you have quad drive and you have 8 criticals in your deck, this is the same as the Blaster's case. Like, you've all seen what Gancelot can do to you, so I wouldn't underestimate Drag Strider just the same. It is also more powerful than that because you can't guard it with grade 1s or higher, which means no PGs, no quintet walls. So all of their reliable sources of high guard, except for G-Guardians, are taken out of the loop. And then even G-Guardians can only guard for so much, and depending on how many cards you discard, then this card can gain massive power. And so they have to use either more than 1 G-Guard to guard it, or they have to use a G-Guard and multiple zeros or a lot of zeros to guard this card. So this card can be pretty good. It's just not my favorite card, so to speak. Then we have another new card from G-BT12, Supremacy True Dragon Claret Sword Helheim. So this card really goes really well with the Claret Sword deck, but in my opinion, it's also good in the Luard deck for this set, especially because there's a lot of control decks out there. There's a lot of decks that are gonna G-Guard you and PG you first stride because they're scared of getting crit, and etc, etc. Like, when you go into this card, they're either gonna take it, they're gonna PG it, or they're gonna G-Guard it and then guard with something else. Like, or you force them to guard with a bunch of zeros from their hand. Like, either way, like, all the ways, the scenarios that it happens, it's a win-win-win-win-win-win for you. So I think this card is very good in the Luard deck, but some people don't think that. When this card, but the ability is, when a card with the Sentinel ability, aka a PG or a quintet wall, or G-Guardian is placed on your opponent's guard circle, or when this card's attack hits. So it's basically covering all the bases of, like, however your opponent can not let this activate. The only way that they can avoid this activating is if they just throw down a bunch of basic guards to guard it, and that's really dangerous, playing like 2 to pass and 1 to pass with this card. Or with any card in this deck in general. Like, that's just a dangerous game. But you basically flip a card from the G-Zone with the same name as this unit, and then if you do, you search your deck for the same number of grade 1 or less cards as the number of face-up cards in your G-Zone. You call them the separate rearguard circle and shuffle your deck. So Helheim can be really good because of your opponent throwing down G-Guards and PGs and all of that stuff, and it allows you to just call out more cards to attack with, so it becomes pretty good. It is also a really good setup for Drag Ranger Ogma if you decide to Ogma, because Helheim could possibly get you an entire board of grade 1s. So when you're set up like that and you're Ritual 5, like, why not Ogma your opponent? It's a great option. So what Ogma does is, during the main phase, if you're Ritual 5, you can Counter Boss 1 and Soul Blast 1 and choose a face down card from your G-Zone, turn it face up. Then you choose up to 5 of your grade 1 rear guards and retire them. And for each rear guard retired for this effect, your opponent has to choose a card from their hand or rear guard and put into the drop zone. So if your opponent has no rear guards, this is especially useful against them because they have to discard 5. if you retire 5. So that can cripple your opponent in ways unbeknownst to most. Like, literally, that can cripple your opponent so hard if they have to discard 5. Or even if they just have 1 rear guard and you still retire 5, they still have to get rid of 1 rear guard and 5 cards from their hand. Or sorry, 1 rear guard and 4 cards from their hand, or 5 cards from their hand if they want that rear guard really bad. Then even most of the time, like if they want that rear guard really bad, if they discard 5, you can usually punish them by playing a Kethlin in the same column as wherever that card is that they want. Because this also, like Kethlin also gets around resist, so Kethlin's just very good like that. But yeah, back to Ogma. Your opponent chooses cards from their hand or rear guard and puts into the drop zone, and then if a total of 3 or more rear guards were put into the drop zone by both fighters, then you draw a card. So if you retire at least 3 by your ability, or you retire 2, your opponent retires at least 1, then you get to draw. So pretty good. Then we have the GB8, Dark Knight Eargun Welt. So what Eargun Welt does is Generation Break 8 Counterblast 1 during the main phase. Choose up to 5 of your rear guards and retire them. Then search your deck for up to the same number of grade 1 or less cards that were retired. Call them to separate rear guard circle. They get plus 15,000 power. And then choose up to the same number of your opponent's rear guards as the number of units that were called and retire them. Shuffle your deck. So this card is basically a board wipe. Calls you a lot of units with high K power, and it tries to end out the game for you by attacking with huge numbers. It goes Neo Nectar mode for pretty much 2 seconds. Then we have 1 Dark Dragon, Animus Pile Dragon. So a lot of people think that this card is bad, and it's not like the best card ever, but honestly, like, I finished off an opponent one time with this because I knew that they didn't have a PG. So basically Ritual 3, for every grade 1 in your drop zone, this unit gets plus 5,000 power. So if you're like Ritual 5 or Ritual 6, this card's getting like 25,000, 30,000 power. Like, if you know that your opponent doesn't have a PG for a fact and they only have like G guards or something, you can just attack them with this, and it will be really hard for them to guard this, because if you're Ritual 6, like let's say you're right outside of the range of getting to Dragstrider, you can go into Animus Pile if you know that they don't have a PG. If you know that they do have a PG, it's kind of like a back and forth thing. Like if you know that they do have a PG, you can go into Dragstrider. If you know that they don't have a PG, you can go into Animus Pile Dragon and then just attack them for like 70 something, and they literally have to guard you for every 5k that they give you will be worth, because they'll have to throw down, like let's say that we're Ritual 6, this card will gain 30,000 power, so it will be 56 by itself. If you have a 7k booster, that's 63, and then your opponent will have to throw down 21, 31, 41, 51, 61, and then they'll have to throw down 6 cards. Like, that's ridiculous. Or like G-Guard and like 3 to 4 cards to guard this card effectively. So that it can force a lot of cards out of your opponent's hand, so I wouldn't sleep on this card. Then we have 2 Dark Dragon Phantom Blaster Diablo. What Phantom Blaster Diablo does is it's one of our older strides. So during the main phase, you can counterboss 1, flip a Phantom Blaster Diablo from your G-Zone face up, and then if the number of face up cards in your G-Zone is 2 or more, this card gets 10,000 plus 1 critical, and then it gets an ability that says when your unit attacks a Vanguard, you make pay the cost, which is retire 3 rear guards, and then your opponent has to choose 2 of their rear guards and retire them, and if they don't, they cannot guard with cards from their hand during this battle. So basically, if your opponent has less than 2 rear guards on the board, you always want to go into Phantom Blaster Diablo, because you can just straight up end the game with the amount of criticals you run and the fact that it gets a critical and power. They won't be able to guard from their hand, so the only choice that they will have is to G-Guard, and 36 even without a booster is enough to have G-Guards that are 41k, say 1 to pass. Like, that's pretty ridiculous unless they have multiple G-Guards, and even then usually you're boosting with this unit, or you're boosting this unit, so it will be like 43. So even if they double G-Guard you, like usually it's like 2 or 3 to pass, and then they're at danger of being like sacked and put to death. Going on, we have 1 Dark Dragon Carnivore Dragon. Carnivore Dragon is one of our strides from the trial deck, which I've stated this to be my favorite stride in all of Shadow Paladin. It might not be worth all that recognition that I give it, but it does a lot of work for me when I put it out, so I really like this card. I wish I had space to run more. Bushy Road, 16 to 20 G-Zone spaces, please. But you choose one of your rear guards and retire it. Then your opponent chooses 2 of their rear guards, retires it, and then if your opponent did not retire 2 units, then you choose 3 units in the front row, and they get plus 4,000 power. So if your opponent only has 2 rear guards on the board, both of them are quite important. You can go into Carnivore Dragon for a guaranteed kill on both of them. Then for our G guards, we only have 4. We run 1 Witch Queen of Iniquity Herald. So what this card does is it flips a G Guardian when it's placed on the guard circle, and then we can choose up to 2 of our grade 1 or less cards, move in the guard circle, and then if we have 2 or more units that we moved, which we can only move 2, so if we move 2 units, draw a card. So pretty good. Then we have a Plot Maker Dragon, is basically our bread and butter G Guardian for the deck. If it is Ritual 3, if we are in the Ritual 3 condition when we go into this G Guard, then this G Guard gets 10,000 shield, so it becomes a 36k shield. Very, very solid card. Blocks a lot of attacks. And then we have one of our new G Guardians from the set, Dragwiser Bronarch. So what Bronarch does is it kind of helps you get Ritual a bit faster. Like, I've had a turn where I literally like rode to Luard and I did not have Stride Fighter in my hand. I only had zeros. It was like really unfortunate. But one of those zeros I had was a heal trigger. So I G-guarded with the heal trigger and I had no grade 1s in my drop zone. And I used the effect of this and I got 3 grade 1s off of the top 5 cards of the deck. So I was able to stride with Ritual the next turn. Just really, really good. So what it does is when it's placed on the guard circle, reveal top 5 cards of your deck, call all grade 1s from among them to the guard circle, and then put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. So it doesn't take out cards that are like triggers or anything like that. Like, it's like a quintet wall, but a good version of it in the form of a G guard. So it's a very good card, in my opinion. Like, I wouldn't necessarily sleep on that card either. So yeah, do beware of that card. Like, Dragwiser Bronarch can be a very, very good option for you or your opponent to go into should you both be playing Luard. So we're going to get right into the games here. Load up our Luard game 1. We are actually playing the mirror match, which is ironic because I was just talking about this like literally minutes before I typed in this replay. So we decided to ride grade 1 after him because we're going second. We attack him, we check a PG. He damage checks a Luard, and so I was actually hoping that he didn't have Luard in his hand, so that would cripple him. And now that I'm seeing his hand, I realized that he didn't have Luard. We had to check top 7 for our own Luard here with Abyssal Owl skill, and we did not get it. So we play another Abyssal Owl, check top 7, and we did not get it again. And I was like, oh my god, I was prepared to discard 3 grade 1s just to get it, and we didn't get it. So he 1 to passes us. We do get the 1 to pass and check a heal simultaneously. So we're doing a lot of damage to him right off the bat. He doesn't really seem like he wants to take a lot of damage, and he plays a grade 2, to which I'm like, I got really happy about internally because he doesn't ride a grade 3, which doesn't force me to G-assist. I can just stay on 2 just like him and keep attacking into him. So he's at 4 damage. I'm at 1 now. He does decide to go for the G-assist here, and I thought the reason that he went for the G-assist here is because he wanted to be able to Sabreeze me, which he could have done. But he just ended up G-assisting, I think I remember, just to G-assist, and gets his grade 3. So he attacks us for 9, we take it, we get a draw trigger, hoping that we draw a grade 3, but we don't. He checks another PG and a crit trigger off of his drive check. We get another draw trigger, and we do not draw again. So we are forced to G-assist, but I guess thank God for those draw triggers. But even though we G-assist, we don't get our grade 3 off of it, which I'm like, where are all my grade 3s? Like, this is so ridiculous. So then we check top 7 off of our 3rd Abyssal Owl. We whiff Luard again, which is like sometimes the reason why I hate this deck, because, oh my god, it's just so ridiculous sometimes. Me and my opponent both give each other like a mutual LOL that this is happening to me. So then I attack him for 14. He can't G-guard because I'm not grade 3, but he tries to anyways, so he has to reverse it. Yeah, so then he just ends up guarding with a 10k for a no pass. I do check a critical trigger, which is lucky for me because I'm able to force more cards out of his hand unnecessarily. So then he draws. He's not able to stride or do anything really because I'm not at grade 3. He can't stride, he can't really do anything. So he attacks me for 16, and then he attacks me for 16 with his Vanguard, IPG. He checks a grade 3, and then a Morfessa, and I was like, please draw Luard, and I did draw Luard, so I discarded 3 PGs to go into Drag Strider because I thought I was super smart, but I kind of forgot here that Drag Strider was Generation Break 2, so I was like, oh, I've been playing the grade 1 game with him for so long, like, I have Ritual 7. So I tried to like go into Drag Strider. I didn't even do the rest of the plays that I could have done, like adding PGs to my hand and stuff like that, because I thought I was just going to kill him guaranteed using Drag Strider. But then when I attacked with it, I read it, and I was like, oh, I'm so stupid. So then I just attack him for a vanilla 31k. And then he PGs me, and we do check a critical trigger, putting all effects on rear guard and double critical. So then we attack him with the critical. He does go into Dragweiser Bronarch, and he calls only 1 off of the top of his deck. So that is 31 enough to guard our assault. And I think that he thought it wasn't enough. He was like 5k short, but it was just enough. I don't know how he was doing his math, but yeah, that was more than enough to guard. He top decks a heal trigger, but unfortunately in Luard that doesn't mean anything. So of course he does Ritual to stride for free. And he decides to go into... he decides to go into Drag Driver, which is actually pretty interesting. Oh, he returns Drag Driver. Okay, so he's going into Phantom Blaster Diablo. And I was like, oh, okay, like, that's pretty interesting. I guess because my, all my PGs were my drop zone, he knew that I didn't have a PG. So I guess it's kind of like an okay option to go into, especially since he didn't know that I had these 2 heals in my hand. He probably thought that it was like a guaranteed win for him to go into this. So, not a bad option, really. But he uses his Luard Stride skill to call 2. He uses Vanguard skill to kind of boss 1, flip a Phantom Blaster Diablo, and it gets plus 10k. He attacks us for 18. We decide to take it to give more power to our Vanguard, preparing for Phantom Blaster Diablo. We intercept with our grade 2 for the second attack, and then for Vanguard skill, we get rid of 2 cards in the lead G-Guard. I didn't even have to get rid of 2 cards, I just thought about that for the double G-Guard, but I did anyways, because I was playing really dumb in this game, for whatever reason. But he checks 3 cards, one of them is a critical, which is not enough to pass him considering it's no pass. Then I use Ritual myself, put back 2 cards, and then I go into actual Drag Strider this time, so that I can try to finish out the game. I call 2 grade 1s, I Soul Blast 1 to draw a card, and then I play, I think I played Shudder here. Yeah, so I go for Shudder, and then I use my skill of Ezra's to retire Differbow. Differbow skill goes off, it goes into the soul. I check the top card of my deck and I decide to call it because it's Kethlin. And then I call the Belial Owl to the field that I have. I go into the battle phase. I attack him for 15. And then I attack him and I get rid of 2 cards and I sack 2 cards. So I'm attacking him for 36. No grade 1s or higher, etc, etc. So he's using another Bronarch to check the top 5. He gets a PG off of the top 5, but since this PG has to be played from hand to PG, it's kind of unfortunate for him. He's just guarding for 26 now. And even if he throws down that 0, it won't be enough because it'll just be matching my 36. So I check a heal trigger on my second check, third check, and then fourth check, I check another heal, so I'm actually secretly broken, guys. But he takes 2 damage, and that ends up ending the game for him. I was really shocked that I got really excited and just went into Drag Strider, because I was just like, oh, I can do this. But then I was like, oh, I'm an idiot. Like, but yeah, I got really excited and almost lost the game because of it. I also should have used those PG skills that were my drop zone, but that was just a result of me being really cocky for like literally 0 reason, because I did not need to do that. But going to our second game, we're actually playing against Messiah, which is kind of annoying. Like, we hate playing against Link Choker with this deck because we can't, like, have all of our rear guards to ourselves. So we attack him, we do crit him. The thing that I do like about the crit version of this build, and opposed to the stand trigger version, is that you end the game a lot more quickly because you have a lot of crits in your deck, and then also with decks that lock out your rear guards, like, it doesn't matter as much because you're all about the crits anyways. So he checks 2, we do get a draw trigger and draw. We ride into Luard, and then we counterboss 1 to get 2 sword breakers. We draw 2 cards. And then we are now Ritual 1 currently. So we play a G-BT12 Shutter and a Morfessa. So the reason that I didn't play this Belial in my hand is because I wanted to retire these 2 Blackwing Sword Breakers anyways, so that I could get to Ritual with G-BT12. He does PG us, so we go into, or we use Helheim skill to call an Abyssal Owl. And we check 3 cards of our deck, we check nothing. And then we use Shutter skill to retire 2. Also, this is good against Messiah because this leaves him unable to lock out my front row. He can lock out the G-BT12 Shutter, but he can't lock out both, which is what I was concerned about. He does choose to lock my back row with his on-stride skill, which is kind of awkward, but I'm not really like understanding why he did that, but yeah. Then he attacks into us for 11. I G-guard with my flip G-guard in just so that I can guard with this grade 1 so that he doesn't lock it with the Wrestler Messiah, because I didn't want a locked card in that circle. So he just chooses to lock it, then he uses the skill of his Vanguard to flip a copy of it, lock my card, and then unlock his card. And then when he unlocks his card, he uses the skill to shove into the soul, give 5k, and draw a card. So he draws 2 cards, which are criticals, which, had I known, that would have been really great for me, but obviously I didn't know because I can't see my opponent's hand. But he does check a draw trigger off of that, which would have previously been a double critical, so I'm very thankful for that, because it allows me to just take the 2 last damage with ease. We do use Luard's skill to stride for free. We go into another Helheim. And then we decide to play our Shutter. We check the top 2. We call the top 2 to the board. 1's a draw trigger, and 1 is a grade 1. So we use the draw trigger skill to give 3k, and then we play a Belial Owl. We decide to attack first with Shutter, assuming that Helheim's going to call cards. So we're able to draw 2 cards off of that. Our opponent guards it. And then we attack with Vanguard for 26. He does PG as expected. So when he PGs, we're able to use Helheim's skill to flip a copy, and then we can call up to 3 cards. So I decide to call Branwyn, Abyssal Owl, and Simius, not using Simius skill. So I check a draw trigger, add power to my rear guard, and then more 2s. So then I attack him for however much he intercepts and easily guards it. So then he strides with 2 cards, which is good for me. He goes into another Baltiste Messiah. He uses the skill of his on stride to call a card, lock one of my units and one of his, or up to 1 of each of ours. Then he goes into the battle phase because I guess he can't do much else. He does use the skill to counter boss 1. And Soul Blast 1. And then he uses the skill of Baltiste Messiah to counter boss 1, unlock, and then he chooses to triangle lock me. And then I PG this one. He checks a 1, and a heal trigger, so he does go down in damage, which I wasn't too happy about, but it is what it is. He attacks with his other rear guard, and then when they unlock during the end phase, he draws 2. I use Luard skill to stride for free, putting back a Shutter and an Abyssal Owl to use Carnivore skill. Then I use Luard skill to counterboss 1 call an Abyssal Owl. I did that basically just to thin my deck, and then I used Carnivore to get rid of the Abyssal Owl I called, making him retire 2, and then giving my card the ability to just attack into his Vanguard with less normal units in my deck. So I do check a critical and a heal trigger. So he would have went to 5 there had he, or he does go to 5 because he 2 to passes me, and I get it. And then he damage checks a heal as his 5th damage, so he does heal down. And then he goes into Harmonics Messiah here, to which I was like, "Food." I kind of forgot about this this card, so I wasn't really playing to the strengths of like having to guard it eventually. However, I do have 3 heal triggers in my hand, so that is that. But I did flip a heal trigger early for the skill of my G-Guardian. So really effectively, I only have 2 G-Guards to use and zeros. I might have to get up here momentarily to get my laptop charger because I didn't expect that my laptop was going to try to die on me while I was recording this video, so I didn't bring the laptop charger downstairs. But yeah, it might try to die on me. So if I get that alert, I'm just going to disconnect my headset and go upstairs and get that. This would actually be a great chance for me to do it. Seeing as my opponent went like AFK for a little while for whatever reason. I'm not really sure to this day like why my opponent went AFK right here and why I decided to stay around for so long. But I stayed around for so long, and then my opponent just eventually came back and was like, "Oh, sorry," and continued the game. So while that happened, I'm going to run upstairs and get my laptop charger. Alright, so it looks like my opponent just came back and said sorry for leaving or whatever. They continue during their turn. Whew. All out of breath because I ran upstairs. So yeah, you guys can see that he's literally just putting back a bunch of heal triggers, or sorry, a bunch of crit triggers into his deck with the skill. So he attacks me with his rear guard. I decide to take it, considering that his Harmonics is probably going to have a crit. So I wanted to give myself a chance to check a trigger while that happened. So then he has to flip a G unit for his Harmonic skill. I'm not really sure why he was moving so slow. Maybe he was just reading it, or maybe he was lagging or something. Not really sure, but he does flip a card and unlock all of our cards, which gives his card goes up to 61k. So we G-Guard with 2 plot makers, which makes us 41, 51, 61, 71, 81 for a no pass. He checks the critical trigger, putting all to one side, and then he checks 2 vanillas. So I was like actually pretty surprised after all those crit triggers he put back. But I guarded one with a 10k and one with nothing else. And then we use our skill to stride, and this time we go into our GB8. So we end up counterblasting 1 to call 2 cards out. I should have used a need skill to give 3k to 2 units, but I guess I wasn't thinking about it necessarily. Or yeah, I did use it. Wow, I'm so smart. Past me is so smart. I thought I actually skipped over it, but we used the GB8 skill to get rid of our cards, because we did search our deck and see how much it would like deck thin us, like if we would deck out if we did this, because we are retiring Belial as some of the costs, so we are going to draw a certain amount of cards. We need to make sure that we don't deck out. So we called 3 cards off of our GB8. We retired the 3 cards on his board that is not the draw trigger. And then all of our cards called get 15k. We draw 2 cards, which happen to be 2 Shutter, which is kind of hilarious. We use the PG skill to get us a card back. And then we attack him for 22. He does pull a heal trigger and do the G-Guardian, which I knew he was going to do, or try to do, Lactus Karina, which is why I didn't keep the other rear guard out there. So he's only able to lock 1, so I lock 1, and he was trying to tell me that I had to lock both in my back row, but like I was trying to make him read his own card and realize that I only lock 1 forever, however many he locks. And since I purposefully put him down to 1 card on his field, like I knew that he was only going to be able to lock 1 in my back row. So then I attacked him with 29. And then also, like, he was trying to tell me that he gets to choose, because he told me to unlock the one behind my Vanguard and lock the other side. So then he's just like, no guard. I end up checking my cards. 1 is a critical trigger, so I go crit, Vanguard, power to rear guard. And then he takes 2 damage. And that ends up being game for the Messiah player. That was a really long-winded game just because he randomly left in the middle of it, but yeah, probably gonna make this video super long because of that, actually, which I apologize about that to you guys. Some of you like long videos, which like some of you have contacted me and said like, hey Josh, I actually really like your long videos. So I'm like, yeah, you win some, you lose some, I guess. But loading up Luard game 3, our opponent is playing OTT, so this is pretty interesting. We seem to have a pretty decent hand, like right off the bat. We say hello to our opponent. He rides a PG, we ride Abyssal Owl and attack him. We check a heal trigger right off the bat, which I would prefer to not really check against OTT, like not in the early game at least, because I prefer to heal off some Iki Kishima damage. He does check a critical, and we check a critical as well. But then we attack him, we don't check any trigger at all. Then he goes to do his turn. He rides into his grade 3, calls a Psychic Bird and draws a card, then uses a Precious Ophidian to Soul Blast, draw a card. And then he decides to move Precious Ophidian up so that he can play Lassie to the board. So then he attacks with Lassie using the Oracle skill to check the top card of the deck and put it to the bottom. We don't know what the top card he checked is because it doesn't even show me for like the watch log, so not sure. But he checks a grade 2 and a crit trigger, which I was hoping that I didn't get crit again right here, but sadness is life. So we do stride, use the on-stride skill to get 2 cards. And I actually was like looking for my other Swordbreaker, but I didn't notice that I had damaged it because I was paying attention to other things. So when I went to go search and there wasn't 2 there, I was like, wait, am I missing cards? Like, I thought my deck was like legitimately missing cards because my Swordbreaker was just blending in. Then I called that second Abyssal Owl, and then I realized, and I Soul Blast 1, drew a card, and got a draw trigger, and I was like, well, what else can happen that's bad? Pretty much. But I attack his Vanguard with Helheim. I check 1, check 2, crit trigger, critical to Vanguard, power to rear guard, and check 3, critical. Critical to Vanguard, power to rear guard. So I triple critical him, however he does heal 1 damage off, which kind of sucks for me, but I use Helheim's skill to call a grade 1, and then I attack his Vanguard for 26. Then he does go into Ame no Suzume and draw a card with the Soul Blast of Susanoo. Then he plays Nanase and Nazuna. It gets the skill. So basically this card gets 2k. Like with the combination of the skills, like this card will get 2k for every card in his hand once he's Oracle. So his Vanguard attacks us, we PG his Vanguard, I want to say. Actually, we might have not PG'd his Vanguard just so that I can... Oh yeah, we did PG it. Okay. So we PG his Vanguard, he checks a stand trigger. And then he checks regular cards. So then he attacks with his rear guard, counter boss 1, checks the top with Lassie first, and then he counter boss 1, checks top 5 for an Oracle card, adds it to his hand. And then he's attacking us for 26. I decided to G-Guard because I know that Ikikishima's coming and I won't be able to G-Guard for pretty much the rest of the game. So I decided to just get some of my G-Guards out of the way now so that I can do that right now. So I Bronarch, and I end up only getting 1 grade 1 off of the top. So I only realized that they had to go to the bottom after, so that's why I pulled those cards back out of the top and put them to the bottom, because they'll put them to top and shuffle. But yeah, his card does get 14k, it should have got, which this should actually be bigger, I feel like, but we did G-Guard it with our other card anyway, so. Then he uses his PG to counter boss 1, hand shuffles his deck, and then I picked card 5 to go. So the card that I sniped was a stand trigger, looks like. Then he uses another PG. And this time I sniped card 5 again, so this time I got a PG, which is awesome. Yeah, so he's returning his unit's power. I'm thinking about what I can do to end this before Ikihishima hits the board, because I have a lot of zeros in my hand right now, and it's not looking good for ya boy, the champion. So we do go into Cleric Sword Helheim because I'm just like, okay, I want some multi-attacks. Like, I'm not at Ritual 7 yet, so I can't like consistently Drag Strider him without getting rid of a bunch of cards. So I decided to just call a board and try to go ham for as long as I can. So I attack him for 12. And he decides to take this one. He gets a heal, healing off the damage, so that really affected things because it was like I wanted him to be able to, or have to take the multi-attacks that I'm trying to come at him with Cleric Sword Helheim, but unfortunately he did not have to because he checked the heal, so sucks for us. But we do attack with Vanguard, and then he decides to PG. He still has 1 PG left in his hand, but he discards a PG for the PG, so I really would have liked it if he would not have healed, because it just would have been great for us, but unfortunately everything can't go your way in this game we call Vanguard, so. Then we use Simia's skill to counter boss 1, check the top, and then we call 2 cards, which both happen to be draw triggers, so which I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so unlucky. But I checked the top, and one of them is a heal, so I do heal down a damage, which is good for us, and then the other one is a PG, which is also good. Then we attack one of his rear guards for 11, and then we attack his Vanguard for 19. So he takes another damage instead of getting rid of like 2 cards that he would have gotten rid of if he hadn't healed out. And then he does have to stride with 2 cards on top of that. So it's just like, I feel like that would have left us in such a good scenario. But he goes into Ichikishima. He uses his starter skill to counterboss 1, shove it to the soul and draw a card. And then he counterboss 1, soul loss 1, and flips to draw 2 cards. And then he uses the GB3 to flip his GB8 to give us the ability not to block with zeros or G-Guardians. So he attacks us with 21, and we pretty much can't even guard it because our front row is grade 1s. The only cards we can guard with in our hand are 2 grade 2s and a PG. And I pretty much need the PG as Vanguard, so the only way I see getting out of this is taking 2 attacks and him not critting me. So I just decide to no guard. And he does crit me, of course, so he does crit power, and then I check a heal, but obviously, of course, not in the right spot, because I check it as my 5th damage instead of my 6th damage. So that was that, and yeah, so that ends up being all the Luard games. So this has been our Luard video for G-BT12. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know if you enjoyed it with a like and a comment in the comment section down below. Don't forget to tell me what Singapore people are called in Singapore, as I asked at the beginning of the video, in the comment section, because I'm actually like very curious about that. I might just look it up before you guys say something about it, but that's neither here nor there. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure to subscribe. Check out our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Patreon. For those of you who support me on Patreon, thank you so much. You are such amazing help to this cause we call a channel. And yeah, with that being said, this has been Josh from Cardfight Empire, and I'll see you on the next video.